I run a men's group and I run it once a month. And it's so fascinating to me. Like the other night, the first thing that we were talking about is how do you know when the person you're with is the one? And I was surprised because one of the guys said, well, you know if they're the one because you end up married to them. But the majority of men were like, well, that's not necessarily true. We might know they're the one, but we have our own issues of commitment. And most of our issues with commitment come around fear. And it traces back to the way we were raised. And, the more we got talking about it, I found that if they were raised with a very domineering parent, or especially a single parent, that they had more of a tendency to feel smothered easily, like they would get lost in the relationship. And so anytime they were truly intimate with another person, they needed to make up for it by pushing that person away and getting space. Or a lot of them said that they had this unconscious feeling like they were never going to be good enough. And once again, the majority of the guys in the group traced that back to the way they were raised. Like they always felt growing up that they could have been more, they should have done more to help. And, because 50%, almost 50% of all families are raised by single parents, you have to imagine what that might have been like for that little boy. Maybe dad was gone and he was supposed to be taking over for dad in the family and helping raise his siblings. And if he felt like it was too much pressure, he would always feel this sense that he wasn't good enough. So if he gets in a relationship with a woman and they're intimate and he wants to marry her, that feeling may undermine his ability to commit. And some men said they just felt like there was too much responsibility. They weren't sure they were up for the task. And they remembered growing up, like being pushed to the next stage. Well, you're older now. You shouldn't feel this. You're older now. You don't do this. And I want to remind you, men are socialized much different than women. And so all of those feelings are valid. If you're with a guy and he has fears around commitment, he loves you, he wants to marry you, but his fear is stronger, the first thing I'm going to tell you is not to push. If he says he needs space, you need to listen to what he says and give him space. If his goal of getting better so he can marry you does not match your timeline, if you feel like, I don't have time I love this person, but I can't see my life always having to coax this person to make him less afraid, less worried about the next task, then I can't do that. But then it's up to you to be honest about that as well. I wanted to give you a scenario of their top fears because I thought that may help you if you're in a relationship with a guy. So the way you react with what they're giving you, what they're saying, may not be you take it so personally, but rather you say, you know what, this is their issue. And maybe you can even help guide them to therapy. Maybe that's what the guy really needs. It's time for him to take care of himself. And guys, if you're the ones listening to this, then take up for yourself, advocate for yourself, get the help you need. If this is a person you love and you love this person, then do what you deserve. You deserve to be loved and in a loving relationship. Take care of yourself. I do want to go through the number one fears, though, if you will, whether the number one ones that the guys related to me. A fear of rejection. I think most people have that fear, like they'll get so intimate and then they won't be, like the partner won't follow through. A fear of being controlled and smothered. I wasn't surprised with that one at all. A fear of being um, basically, you love this person so much, and then you find out that they betrayed you in some way, something you confided in, or they were telling their friends something that you trusted them with. I think that's a big fear that a lot of men have. Remember, they're giving you all their emotionality. So if that's betrayed, it's a lot different in a relationship for a woman, because I think for her, she has a lot of friends and a lot of friends would support her. For guys with these intimate details, that's not so true usually. A fear of measuring up. There's a lot of guys who feel like they'll never measure up enough. They put the woman on on a pedestal, and they just think to themselves, I'm an imposter. She's going to find out, and I won't be able to measure up to her demands. This is an area that if you know this about your partner, you can come around and reassure them, especially in the beginning. It really helps them. Remember, you don't know what kind of parenting they had. Being vulnerable and personal sometimes makes guys feel shameful, because especially if that was the rhetoric in their home, that if you divulge this information, you're becoming weaker. And even in society, a lot of women, when they see men emote, they'll say, oh, I got the ick feeling, or something really discouraging like that, disrespectful, if you will. And so I can see why a guy may feel scared about that or reluctant to share that. A fear of trusting a woman. If a guy grew up with a mom who was untrustworthy, that was their idea of a woman, their first woman they ever loved. That's going to have a big impact on them. And then I think the last fear is that they can't make the right decision. There's a lot of options out there, and I think men are looking for something very strong that they can feel or see. And if they came from a home that it was broken, or there were all kinds of different partners, then they're going to be more reluctant with that. As I said earlier, what you can do, you can validate what they feel, you can reassure them where you are and be honest about it. And then you can either go at it from the approach of let's go see a therapist together, or I think that this is something you need to talk out, you need to understand, and hopefully you'll be the person that encourages them to go deal with the issue. If this video is helpful for you, please subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much.